Imagine you're in a forest in the middle of nowhere. There's no Wi-Fi, cell phone service, or any way to communicate with the outside world. There's not much you can do about it. Until now.
Ignition. Liftoff of Falcon 9 and Starlink Ocho.
SpaceX has been launching Starlink satellites into orbit since 2019. It's Elon Musk's ambitious project to provide high-speed internet anywhere, even to the most remote locations in the world. The goal is to connect the planet by delivering internet to places where it's unreliable, expensive, or just not available. But Starlink is also being created for another reason. There's a bigger purpose behind it, which I'll get to at the end of this video. So how exactly does Starlink work? SpaceX is using its Falcon 9 rocket to launch about 60 Starlink satellites at a time. The satellites are stacked on top of each other and put in the capsule.
Those Starlink satellites are separating from second stage right in front of you right now.
The satellites are placed at a relatively low altitude in space because the closer you are to Earth, the lower the latency. Latency refers to how much time it takes for a signal to travel to its destination and back. So low latency gives you a higher internet speed. Starlink speed will be good enough for competitive gaming. It's targeting a latency of less than 20 milliseconds. That's faster than cable internet and comparable to what you'd get with fiber optic broadband. 1,000 satellites will be enough for basic service, but SpaceX wants to get 12,000 of these satellites into orbit. As of June 13, 2020, SpaceX has launched 540. The company has actually applied for permission to launch up to 42,000 satellites, although it's not guaranteed that they'll actually launch that many. Why so many? Because the satellites are so much closer to Earth, they cannot be stationary. They have to move faster to maintain their orbit. They'll cover a smaller area, so more satellites are required for internet coverage everywhere. What SpaceX is trying to achieve is unprecedented. Only about 9,000 satellites have ever been launched in all of history. Out of those 9,000, about 5,000 are in orbit and less than half are actually in use. In comparison, Starlink will be a ridiculously large satellite constellation. But with that comes concerns. Scientists are worried about light pollution because of how much closer the satellites are to Earth. They are bright enough to see without a telescope. SpaceX has been trying to address the issue. The latest batch it launched had a sunshade that can block reflections of sunlight off the antenna. Starlink is controlled on Earth with a device about the size of a pizza box. The terminal will look like a round UFO on a stick, and it'll be easy to use. There are 2 instructions: plug in socket, point at sky. But it's not so simple for those who live in countries where the internet is censored. One of the most famous examples is the Great Firewall of China, where Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and YouTube's owner Google are all banned. Starlink's internet access cannot be controlled by national governments because it does not rely on domestic communications infrastructure. But a government that censors the internet will probably ban the Starlink device. Like most things that are banned, it will be impossible to confiscate them all. But countries can also try to jam the satellite signals or take it one step further. Elon once said this about what China could do.
If they get upset with us, they can blow our satellites up, which would be good. China can do that, so probably we shouldn't broadcast there.
Let's not forget Elon's other company, Tesla, has a lot invested in China. There is a huge customer base there, as well as the Gigafactory in Shanghai. Starlink hopes to begin service in North America first, starting with the northern US and Canada in 2020, and then expanding coverage to nearly everywhere in the world by 2021. If you live in a large city, Starlink is not necessarily going to replace your internet provider. Starlink is not intended to be used in high-density areas because it doesn't have sufficient bandwidth. The focus is on reaching places that don't have coverage or where coverage is weak. SpaceX does have competition in the space internet race, but it's also ahead of the game. The company is at an advantage because it owns its own rockets, and the rockets are reusable. They land back on Earth. That is key because it significantly brings down the cost of each launch. The British startup OneWeb was a competitor, but earlier this year it filed for bankruptcy. Amazon's Project Kuiper also wants to bring you high-speed internet from space. Its CEO, Jeff Bezos, is the owner of Blue Origin, which is also also developing reusable rockets. SpaceX has not said how much the Starlink service will cost as of the publishing of this video, but this is meant to generate a lot of revenue for the company. SpaceX estimates Starlink will eventually bring in $30 billion a year. That's about 10 times more than the annual revenue it expects from its core rocket launch business. So at the beginning of the video, I talked about how there's a bigger purpose for the creation of Starlink. The bigger goal is this: the revenue from Starlink will be used to support Elon's greatest ambition.
I cannot emphasize this enough. This is the thing that we need to do. We must make life sustainably multiplanetary.
Starlink will help fund the development of a city on Mars. There are also plans to use the satellite system on the Red Planet, too. So Starlink is not just a standalone project. It's a piece of a puzzle leading to a larger goal. It's not an end, but a means to an end. That end is civilization on another planet.